We all wonder, what is the secret of the universe? Whether it is dealing with death, with loss, with pain, with sorrow, with life's great changes and challenges, what if we could apply the secret of the universe to every moment of our life, transmuting whatever needs to be overcome? Well, the secret of the universe lies in simply no longer internally resisting, denying, or getting away from what is at this moment. The secret is to find an inner alignment with whatever arises in this moment. It is to be with whatever is at this moment. Just whatever is. It is to find peace, as the great spiritual teacher Eckhart Tolle phrases it, in the form that this moment takes. An inner alignment with whatever form each moment takes. Even though what is seems very limited or limiting, because it already is, already part of the interconnected web of life, and you cannot take what is out of that. But most often our skin encapsulated ego identity cannot do that. But you can do that. And when you feel the truth of it, that you can do that, then there is the possibility of living in a state of yes to what is. An inner yes to the form that arises in each moment. Our ego part lives in a state of no to what is, an inner no. But that yes, and only that yes, brings about the greatest transformation, and it happens when there is a shift in you internally from resisting the present moment because this shouldn't be happening, it's not what I wanted, it is not fair, I don't want this, into yes. Submission. Surrender. To whatever form, to whatever is, to this moment. Because although to some submission may be thought of as weak, submission is nothing other than the peaceful acceptance to the terms of the universe, including the things we cannot change or understand. Because whatever is already is part of that, and we cannot change that, so why resist? So submission, even when that what is seems very limiting, unfair, unacceptable. And you will see when you say yes to what is, space arises. To stay with the words of Eckhart Tolle, a sense of spaciousness arises around the form that this moment takes. And that space will liberate you, free you from the limitations of form, even when that form is very limited. Because the ironic thing is that you can only find the space around the form by saying yes to what is. You cannot find this opening by resisting, but only by being with it, surrendering to the form that this moment takes, embracing it, however limiting. That is key, the inner surrender. Whatever is part of the totality, the story of the universe, and this event is part of that. To some people that means saying yes to the most horrible limitation, to the most terrible form, to the most unacceptable thing that has happened. It means to come to terms with that, surrendering to that. And when you find yourself in this situation, it might help to know that all throughout history, people who reached that great realization, that freedom and liberation to the limiting nature of form surrendered to the most terrible thing, to the most dreadful situation or limitation in their life. They said yes to that. And one of the most famous symbols of that is Jesus on the cross. This is the human symbol of surrendering to the most unacceptable limitation, the most unacceptable form. And not surprisingly, his first words were, "My God, why hast thou forsaken me?" His last resistance, the last no. But then realization came, surrender, and his next words were, "Not my will, but thy will be done." Thy will referring to the will of the one, whatever you like to call it, not making it into a mental concept. Not my will, but thy will be done. A total yes, surrender, submission to life, to the form. And it was then and there that the symbol of the cross, which was the symbol of the ultimate limitation, a torture instrument, became the symbol of the divine, of surrender to life. A greater intelligence comes into play when you say yes to what is. And wondrous things can happen even on the level of form, but they don't happen, they didn't happen when you live in non-alignment with what is. They only happen when you live in alignment with what is. So saying yes does not mean you are condemned to non-action, because out of that state of yes, intelligent action arises when it's needed, not when it's not needed. Because maybe action emerges and the form changes. You would actually be surprised at how quickly things can change and forms can change when you don't resist them anymore internally. And of course you can play around with different forms in your life, experiment and evolve into other forms, but without expecting, as Tolle phrases it, to find the limitless in the world of form. It is realizing that every form in one way or another has some kind of limitation, some kind of constraint, some kind of boundary. That it is the nature of things to be limited. And that deep realization will cease your resistance to things, to forms, to your reactive relationship with form, to the boundaries and limitation of form. And when you see the truth of this, you are able to say yes to the form that this moment takes. You become at ease with what is, instead of resisting the form, which keeps you confined in your own mental form. So therefore, whatever may be happening in your life, and what may be the greatest limitation to you in this moment, it is not only the limitation, but it is also the opening to the divine, to a greater intelligence, to space, when it's not internally resisted. Because the opening into space arises with a yes to what is. Through surrender, through your yes, you are no longer bound to what is. You are no longer tied to the form. No limitation. yourself and life as the formless space, one consciousness, interconnected. And through that realization, through that yes, light will shine through and true happiness will take hold. Even through your pain, your sadness or challenge, light arises in that space, through that opening. And that is the heart of happiness, the core of happiness. So nothing needs to change for this to happen in your life, this transition. Whatever is the best to work with for you at this moment. So you work with that, you say yes to that. Dare to say yes to that. However limiting, how much sadness or pain it may evoke, say yes to that. And space arises, an opening arises, and an enormous power will move into your life, undoubtedly. The very intelligence of the universe manifests through this form, which then becomes an opening through that space of yes. And it is the end of suffering, the end of the suffering.